Hey students, so this is Mr. Dufour. We are back and we are going through lesson 2 again. Um, Last time we left off, we were annotating the excerpt from chapter 9 for Great Gatsby, and we're annotating for where the text refers to dreams or goals. Um, so after those annotations, I want you to go ahead and answer this big guiding question here. How is the American dream explained in this text? Provide evidence from the text to support your answer. So you're using text evidence to support your claim, your analysis claim to this question. How is the American dream explained in the text of the excerpt from chapter 9 of Great Gatsby? So over to the right, you see some guiding questions that I want you to think about. You should think about when the narrator discusses the Dutch sailors, what was their goal? The narrator mentions his neighbor. What part of the text refers to his neighbor's dream? Based on the text, did the narrator's neighbor reach his goal? What part of the text supports your answer? How does the experience of the Dutch sailors and the narrator's neighbor relate to the collective pronoun we? And how do the dreams and goals mentioned in this excerpt relate to the idea of the American dream? So these guiding questions for comprehension, these should help you formulate a claim and explain how, give your take on what the American dream is from that text. But you also have to use text evidence from the excerpt to support it. So, how's that? You're giving that commentary. You're giving that, well, first, you're going to identify that claim. You're going to make that claim. And then you're going to supply evidence. And then you're going to give reasoning behind it. So that CER method, claim, evidence, reasoning, that's what you should be answering on this slide here as your open-ended question. So again, you could go back, rewatch the annotation videos, go back, analyze your notes yourself, your annotations that you made on your excerpt for chapter 9. And then on this slide, I want you to answer that question by providing evidence and reasoning. I'm going to go ahead and pause this video. Okay, welcome back. So, for part 1 of lesson 2, you should have completed the open-ended question for the excerpt for chapter 9. How is the American dream explained? And provide evidence from the text to support your answer. Now we're moving on to part 2, where we're reading a second text. This is a prologue to The Way to Rainy Mountain by N. Scott Momedy. All right. So you're going to open your text using Cami by making a copy and saving to Google Drive. And then I'm going to be doing a model annotation with you to get you started. So you will read this excerpt to The Way to Rainy Mountain. And then on the lines to the right of the text, summarize the underlined passages and explain how each relates to the excerpt of chapter 9. So again, the goal of this lesson was to analyze 2 themes of 2 separate texts. And those 2 themes, how are they relatable to each other in the theme, the American dream? So we're looking at those major components. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go on over to my text here. Okay, you should know how to open a file in Cami by now. You have to click on it and make a copy and save to drive, and then it automatically saves. And then as you're working through your annotations, make sure you click your disk up here to save it and sync it. All right, this will be turned in to me at the end of the week, so I need to see your summary, your summarization, and your annotation notes. So I'm going to go ahead and read this aloud. Please follow along. Okay. Feel free to start taking notes yourself using your markup tools over here. Here we go. Read the following excerpt from a memoir. Summarize each underlined section and explain how it reflects ideas similar to the literary excerpt. So, in one sense, then, the journey to Rainy Mountain is preeminently the history of an idea, man's idea of himself. What remains fragmentary? Mythology, legend, lore, and hearsay, and of course the idea itself, as crucial and complete as it was ever, that is the miracle. The journey herein recalled continues to be made anew each time the miracle comes to mind, for that is a peculiarly the right and responsibility of the imagination. And the journey is a evocation of three rings in particular: a landscape that is incomparable, a time that is gone forever, and the human spirit which endures. The imaginative experience and the historical express equally the traditions of man's reality. Finally, then, the journey recalled is, among other things, the revelation of one in which these traditions are conceived, developed, and interfused in the human mind. Okay, so first thing I want you to do, you have those vocabulary logs saved in your Google Drive. You should all have them saved in your Google Drive, the ones that you've been working on. So I want you to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and mark up some vocabulary words that we might need to look at later. So fragmentary comes to mind, hearsay comes to mind when I'm preeminently. What else can we see? Evocation comes to mind. What else? I think these might be the maybe revelation and interfused. Those also come to mind. Okay, so there's six vocabulary words that you might want to consider. Again, I'm going to make a note here. I'm going to make a note, and you can see this on the video. In your vocabulary log, put complete all parts to define the highlighted vocabulary words. Okay, so you'll have this on your video. As you can see, I've walked through here and modeled some of this for you. But again, if there's other words on here that you don't understand and you want to put in that vocabulary log, feel free to do so. Okay, so now we're going to look at summarizing the underlying text and how it reflects similar ideas to our literary excerpt from Great Gatsby. Okay, so the first one, it says in this first line, the journey to Rainy Mountain is preeminently the history of an idea, man's idea of himself. So I'm trying to think here, kind of making a comparison of what we read in the first text. It's really about one man, it seems like. I mean, the journey is about one man and himself. So I'm looking here. I'm going to go back to my highlighter, grab my highlighter, get me a color. So he says it's man's idea of himself. So that really stands out to me. So I'm going to make a note. I want to make a comment over here. And let's pull my screen over. Okay, so both text give the reader sense that that the main ideas are about a single man's journey. What is that journey? Okay, so there's my first notation, or my second. Okay, and then let's go down here. It says, the journey herein recalled continues to be made anew each time the miracle comes to mind, for that it's a peculiarly the right and responsibility of the imagination. And the journey is an invocation of three things in particular: a landscape that is incomparable, a time that is gone forever, and a human spirit which endures. I want to pause this for a minute and I want you to think about these things right here: a landscape that's incomparable, a time that is gone forever, and the human spirit. I want you to think about those for a second. I'm going to pause. I'm going to pause the video and let you think about those and see how that can relate to goals and dreams as we've read in chapter 9. Okay, we're back. So let's think about this for a second. The journey herein continues. So one of our main thoughts here, he said the journey herein continues. So that stands out for a minute. And then he says it's of three things in particular. And then he lists those three things. But let me think of an idea here of what he's trying to imply. What is this narrator trying to apply? I think he's trying to apply that every journey is constant. And to begin a self journey, we always have to begin somewhere, right? And I think that's what the author is trying to apply here is that we must start somewhere to get to where we want to end up. Okay. So I think that's the big thing, some of the big ideas here as they relate to chapter 9. And then also, how does it relate? I want you to stop a minute and think about this, and I'm going to come back to you. Okay, so I'm thinking about in the second underlined part here, how is it relatable to what we've already read? So, like, anytime I think when that dream is thought up, um, that journey always begins. Like we have particular and specific journeys through parts of our life, and they might be one for us discovering something about ourselves, or maybe it's a particular goal that we're working towards. I think that journey you see it over time develop. So I think that's what he's trying to say here. I think this is what the narrator is trying to tell us. Is that um, when the dream is conceived, the journey starts. Okay. So again, you're thinking about, I'm taking notations because my ultimate goal, I want to write, I want to be able to write my summary over here for each of these underlined parts. So that's what we're trying to think about. Okay. So I've given you the first part of annotating. Okay. So you have some notes here. You have some notes. And now you're going to write a summary in these lines. Okay. So I want you to think about how you're going to use your own annotations to write your summary. So, summary of the underlined text and how it reflects ideas similar to the literary excerpt that we have read. Okay. So, go ahead, use this video as a model. I want you to annotate your text, and then for each of the underlined parts in this excerpt, in this memoir text, I want you to write a short summary, okay, of how the ideas of the American Dream are similar to chapter 9 of The Great Gatsby, and you can go back and read those notes. So I'm going to stop the video here. If you have questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. Thanks.